Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to Cincinnati Podcasts. I'm your co-host, Tyler. That's Greg out there in the Carolinas. We're both representing Bearcat Nation after a huge win versus Notre Dame. What a weekend for Cincinnati, moving up in the rankings, becoming legitimate playoff football contenders here. Greg, how's it going this week?
Oh, this week couldn't be any better. What an amazing weekend. Let's get a round of applause. For the Cats.
Yes.
That was an amazing showing. We'll touch on that a bit later, but that was big game.
Yeah, awesome game to watch. Emotional roller coaster for us fans here, but they really had control the whole game. Like you said, we'll get into that later, and we got some good topics for today. We're going to talk about where the Bearcats stand in the rankings and a few teams around them that dropped or the big games coming up this week that could influence where we are at the end of the season. And then we'll get into a little bit of a Heisman talk with Ritter, some Notre Dame recap, and then some Temple preview. And then we got some recruiting info for you, not only football, but basketball news as well. We're going to dive into all that on this week's episode of Cincinnati Podcasts. Before we get in, this episode of Cincinnati Podcasts is sponsored by Chili Labs. Chili Labs is owned and operated by a UC alum and is the most affordable lab-tested CBD on the market. You can find out more at chililabs.com. Code CATS for 10% off. All right, well, let's dive in. We had 4 top 10 teams lose this week, Greg. 4.
Yep. Pretty
crazy. Let's start off with the first one. What were your initial thoughts on seeing Oregon going down to unranked Stanford?
Dude, I called it. I had some sort of premonition, and I had a great feeling that was going to happen. I think we said this last week that Stanford is not a bad team. And when we were talking about the Oregon schedule, we mentioned they're bound to drop something in a even pretty bad Pac-12, and it happened. Anthony Brown, the Oregon quarterback, 14 for 26, QBR of under 32, no touchdowns,
Crazy.
1 interception. It was a poor showing for a team that beat Ohio State on the road, which, makes Ohio State look worse. So if they get to the point they're 12-1 at the end of the season, lost to this Oregon team, I don't know. And I also just want to quickly touch on Kayvon Thibodeau, who's known around the country as probably the best end, at least draft prospect wise. Majay is looking at like number 2 or 3 around there. He has only had 1 sack on the season, and I think Majay does he have a half? I don't know how many he has. So for all you fans out there, including me, who's worried about Majay not getting to the quarterback, when you're getting triple teamed like these top ends, it's going to happen. But quick sidebar, but yeah, that was
totally agree.
Great to see.
Yeah, totally agree. Oregon looked horrible. The pass interference call was unacceptable. I still think they're going to drop another one personally. I don't think they're that good of a team. Now, It does scare me at the end of the year to put our resume up against Oregon, and they're going to say, well, Oregon beat Ohio State on the road. Cincinnati only beat Notre Dame on the road. So will they take that loss into consideration? I think they should. Those quarterbacks, they got a conundrum there, but we'll see what happens. Let's jump into the next one where Arkansas gets absolutely throttled by Georgia. That was a melee. I don't know about you, where you stand on Georgia. I think they are the best team in the country. I'll take them over Alabama, but Arkansas just completely fell flat in that game.
I think, and also on top of, I'm right there with you as the best team in the country. I think also on top of that, by far the best defense in the country.
Yeah.
Like it's not even close. You hold Arkansas, it was 37-0. 37-0 against a number 8 team. Yes, on the road in a very tough environment, but oh my God. I was thinking Georgia might get them by a touchdown, maybe even 14 points, somewhere around there. But that was an amazing defensive showing. Stetson Bennett was only 7 for 11 because they didn't need him to play that much.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Crazy what Georgia's doing. Versus their 2 top 10 opponents, they've outscored them 47-3. Now, Clemson's not looking like the team they were before, but Man, that defense is something else. They got three ranked games back to back to back here versus Auburn, UK, and Florida. So let's see if they can survive that. They do that, they can definitely get undefeated the rest of the year here. The rest of the schedule looks fine. They'll get to the SEC championship, but hey, us Cincinnati fans would love to see them skid here once before they get to the championship game. We'll get to Notre Dame later. They were one of the other teams that lost to the University of Cincinnati. But the shocking one was unranked Kentucky beating Florida. Now, Kentucky is moved up to 16th in the nation, and they're undefeated. Looking like a little bit of a threat over here in the SEC, shockingly. So what were your thoughts on that game, Kentucky, Florida there?
See, that unlike that Stanford Oregon game, that was something I didn't see. I don't know if it's my blatant lack of respect for Kentucky football.
Probably.
Or, I mean, at the same time, though, and again, we've said this on prior podcasts, Florida lost a lot with Trask and Pitts gone. That, I mean, those are, you never want to lose your number one quarterback, and Trask wasn't hell of a quarterback last year.
Yeah.
So, again, I think Florida was ranked a little bit high and we're getting a little bit too much respect. But then again, I don't think Kentucky is ever, regardless of, they can go 12-0. I don't think they're a good team regardless. So that one really surprised me.
I'm on the same page. I think we overranked Florida to begin with in the beginning of the year. People were talking about them as legit contenders and things like that. They lost so many guys, and they lost their guys that influenced the game the most. So I just didn't ever think that Florida was that great. Kentucky did shock me here now, but Florida just doesn't have the athletes they once did. And we'll see what Kentucky can do here. You know, they got some big games coming up here. They're going to face some legitimate SEC talent now. They'll face Florida soon. Then they face, they're going to face Georgia soon. And that's in really Mississippi State's their only other team. Shockingly, if they get past Georgia here, they could actually go undefeated till the SEC championship. So we'll see. We'll see with them. I don't think either of us are sold on them, though. The biggest jump, though, after the rankings this week was Oklahoma State up to 12. Big one for them. They beat another undefeated Baylor. Neither of them had really played anybody yet, but right now, Oklahoma State looking like a potential threat in the Big 12.
Yep. Yeah, and not something I totally want to see just because I want to keep these Big 12 schools especially out of there. But looking at their schedule, they're on the road at number 21 Texas. They're on the road at unranked Iowa State, still a solid team. On the road 2 weeks after that, November 6th at West Virginia, solid team. And then
a Big
finish
12
off the season November 27th, hosting Oklahoma. That one's a toss-up. We'll see how both of those teams turn out throughout the rest of the season, but I think they're bound to drop a couple along the way, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see them getting through the regular season to Oklahoma in their last game undefeated. There's just no way. They've kind of had a cakewalk here since since this Baylor game, and Baylor really hasn't played anyone either. So I'm not sold on them. I'm not too worried. That one doesn't scare me, but we'll get into the big game in the Big 12 actually this week here as we transition to what's coming that could influence the standings here. Oklahoma, Texas. Big one. People are saying Texas is actually the best team in the Big 12 right now. They play number 6 Oklahoma. They dropped behind Cincinnati to number 6 after we beat Notre Dame. Texas at 21. The Red River rivalry, man, this is going to be a battle. I know who I'm pulling for. What are your thoughts on this game coming up?
I don't know. I'm kind of torn, and I'm assuming you're pulling for Texas.
Oh yeah,
I am. But I don't know. I could Spencer Rattler honestly has not played that poorly, but Oklahoma has not played well.
Yeah,
and this past game against Kansas State, 37-31, but he was 22 for 25. That's 88%. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, his completion percentage is absolutely off the charts, but they just haven't really shown up. And I think it's that defense. And we've touched on this, but they give up a lot of points to not great offenses.
Yeah.
And I can totally see going into Austin, a noon game. I can see Texas pulling this off, and I really hope they do.
Yep, I'm really pulling for Texas here. This is going to be a huge one. They've already lost to Arkansas. Arkansas now not looking as daunting as they once did. So this is big for us. We definitely need Oklahoma to drop. That's the one we need. I think we both can agree Alabama and Georgia are probably getting in, even if one of them loses in the SEC championship to the other.
Yep.
So right now we can't afford for a misstep with the Big 12. We need everyone to have at least one loss here. So we'll see. I think Texas, Oklahoma, I think one of them is also going to lose to Iowa State. They're tough.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma State, I think they're going to gobble each other up. We just need Oklahoma to get that first loss under their belt. But the real big one this weekend, Iowa, Penn State, man, That's going to be a battle. Number 3 versus number 4, right ahead of us. We get a W this week. We can go to the top 4 in the AP poll. This is huge. What are your thoughts? Iowa, Penn State this week, Big Ten matchup.
Okay, I'm looking up the line really quick because I know how I feel about this game. It looks like Penn State's the underdog coming into this. I like them to go in and knock off Iowa. Yeah. I don't think Iowa has that great of an offense. I, at the same time, don't think James Franklin is a good coach, regardless of their record right now. And this is coming from I grew up a Penn State fan.
Yeah.
I went my first year to Penn State. Both my parents are alums. I know a lot about the program, and I hate James Franklin. Don't think he's a good coach. I think they go into Kinnick and knock off Iowa. Iowa's defense is very solid, but I mean, Penn State beat Indiana 24-0 last week at home. So take it as it is. Yeah. But regardless, I honestly don't care what happens. I haven't dug too much into their schedule to see which one benefits us more, because whoever has the toughest schedule going ahead, I want to win. So that's maybe something we'll touch on next week when we're probably number 4 in the polls.
Hey, that's awesome. I can't wait till next week already. I'm pulling for Penn State here because Iowa loses most likely to Ohio State in the finals. And we don't want them to go undefeated. And if they do beat Ohio State, they still have one loss here. I think Penn State eventually loses to Ohio State, and they also play Michigan and Michigan State as well, I believe. So Penn State's got a tough route. Iowa doesn't play anyone after this really until the Big Ten championship. So I'm pulling Penn State here. I think Iowa is totally overrated here. These guys, now I'm going to give good defenses their praise, because Cincinnati has a great defense, but we don't cause 7 turnovers in a game. That's just not normal. And their turnover rate is insane right now. Their pick 6 rate is insane right now. It is unfathomable that they can keep this up. Their offense is below average. It's not good. So if these guys can just protect the damn ball, they're going to win a 17-10 game, because I don't trust Iowa's offense to actually do anything here.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And you know what? I did just pull up the schedules. Wow. This is probably their last challenging game. They play at Wisconsin the day before Halloween, but I don't know. Other than that, they have Purdue, Northwestern, Minnesota, and Illinois, whereas Penn State has, at Ohio State, home against Michigan, and I guess those are the 2 most challenging games coming up. But in that case, give me Penn State. Yep.
It'll be interesting, man. This is going to be a huge one. All eyes on this Iowa Penn State game. Hopefully one crushes the other, so it's not something where they still get credit for a close loss here, but we'll see what happens. Well, let's move on here into the Cincinnati portion of the show, though, to Desmond Ridder, still number 3 after this game in the Heisman running, I was surprised Matt Corral didn't drop more. The odds wise, I still think he would be second, but the number 1 and number 2 here are running away with it. Bryce Young, Alabama QB, is plus 125. Matt Corral, Ole Miss, plus 250. And then big jump to Desmond Ridder at number 3, plus 1,400. It's awesome. Dez is there. I don't know if he has a chance if Alabama goes undefeated here and Matt Corral keeps putting up numbers that he's putting up. But just for him to be sitting in New York during that Heisman Trophy presentation would be awesome.
And it's huge for recruiting too, because every year, how many invites are there? 5?
Yeah, 4 or 5. Yeah,
4 or 5. So just bringing that to these recruits and saying, look, come to Cincinnati. You can come play in the AAC for a year, or maybe they're 2023s and they're not even going to be in the AAC. We can do it from here. You're thinking between UC or Ohio State, come play for us. We can get you like in that Heisman conversation.
100%. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Ridder finally had a decent game. He got blindsided on a turnover, so I don't really count that against him, but very clean game. He played 3 total touchdowns, almost over 300 yards of offense on his own. So great game from him. It definitely solidified him as a Heisman front runner here, or top 3 Heisman candidate here. So excited for him. We'll continue to now put on shows each week. And so that's the dominant performances is really what's going to propel him forward. So we'll see. Keep pushing, keep doing your thing, Ridder. Let's see what happens. Let's jump into the awesome game that we got to watch this past week. Cincinnati completely dominating Notre Dame, goes to South Bend and just routs them. What should have been a 30-13 game if we didn't have some blind guy kicking field goals out there, and just a dominant performance by the Bearcats here. What were your initial thoughts watching and after this game, Greg?
Never in doubt. That's how it started. I went into the Indiana game significantly more worried.
I agree with that.
And I had nervous jitters at the beginning just because big game, you got that excitement. But we came out to that 17-0 start at half. But I don't know at what point this was, but I saw this stat. Dez was 6 for 15 for 40 yards to start the game.
Yeah.
Which means he went 13 for 17 for 257 the remainder of the game. So, but I will say that 6 for 15, he was missing throws / guys weren't open, but when he was missing them in the correct places.
Yeah.
So he's throwing a little out route and he's throwing it only to where his receiver can get to it.
For
and I
sure.
thought that was really important. There was that one near pick 6 in the second half, but if you rewatch it, the defender didn't even get a hand on it. So how close was it even to begin with? But on top of that, Jerome Ford, I think he played better than I initially thought. 17 for 71. We saw Charles McClelland in the game a bit, but didn't have any rushes from Chuck, none from Ethan Wright or Ryan Montgomery. Alec Pierce, 6 for 144. Amazing. He's the deep ball threat we all thought that he could be.
Yeah.
Which is has been great. And then, Ty Van Fossen and Deshaun Pace, both at that same position, and they each had 7 tackles. Deshaun Pace with a huge interception. I still don't think we played our best, which is great.
Yep. I totally agree with everything you said, man. I agree. We didn't even play our best. I really don't think so. Our defense, though, man, I'm just going to give it all the credit in the world. One of those touchdowns, he were put in a tough position with a short field after a fumble. Notre Dame has the momentum. They got a new QB in there that, kind of offset, put the guys off balance from what they were seeing all game. I don't really count that touchdown on the short field fumble there. So really, we held them to 7 freaking points. That was just an awesome display of defense.
Did you see how solid Kobe Bryant's coverage on that touchdown was? That was just a great play by the receiver. And I also really panicked for a bit because I saw Kobe Bryant's 7 and I thought it was a 1. And I was like, oh my God, Sauce just gave up his first career touchdown.
Still
and then
nothing.
I saw it was Kobe, and I was like, okay, good.
Over 800 career
Good.
snaps, and he's still not giving up a touchdown. He played an awesome game. It did worry me. Right as Notre Dame starts this game, they trounce down the field, and that might have been their best drive of the entire game. They go right down the field, and what happens? Cincinnati causes the turnover. Sauce gets that interception, and that's really from there pure domination. Cincinnati controlled the ball. Ritter was great drives with missed field goals. We really just put together a phenomenal game, and Ritter looked like he did have complete control out there. I was not really nervous in the second half. It got close, at one point, but we drove right back and answered. It was just an awesome game to watch. Huge day for the Bearcats, maybe the biggest win in program history. And this could be a season defining win when it's all said and done with the College Football Playoff Committee.
Oh, for sure. And touching on that, that Notre Dame first drive, Fickle actually mentioned it in his presser. He said, sometimes you want to see you don't always want to see just 3 and outs, because then you don't see what the opposing offense has on their script and what plays they have up their sleeve. So he literally said to the fans, like, don't panic, and don't panic when the other team's in the red zone. Like, we have a solid team. It's honestly beneficial for us to actually see what they're running. And then you don't get, if you go 3 and out the first 3 series and you only see a couple passes, you're not, like, maybe you come out the 4th series and just get burned on a big play because you haven't seen what the other team's drawn up. So I thought that was actually really interesting to hear, and kind of took a little bit of pressure off my shoulders as a fan watching.
Yeah.
And can I also give a big shout out to Lorenz Metz, who's been moved in for the past 2 games into right guard since Vinny McConnell's been out with mono. He and if you go back and think about when James Hudson got kicked out of the Georgia game, he came in at left tackle, bunch of false starts, just let the defender through on that strip sack. And I think everybody was really down on him. This dude's moved into right guard, 6'9", absolute monster of a human being. And watching the film again, he has just been mauling people. So big shout out to him. He's been a big reason why we've been able to push these defensive lines around.
Awesome, man. And it just was such a statement to control a game like that versus a top 10 program. Awesome win for Cincinnati. Go Cats, baby. Wish we could have been there with the big red out at the stadium. You could hear the chants through the TV, the Cincinnati chants. It was awesome to watch. So awesome win. Let's get on to this week. We play Temple on Friday night. We have a 97.7% chance of winning this one. Temple is 3-2 right now, so technically a winning record here, but not too concerned at the moment. Where do you stand on this one, Greg?
I'm not concerned at all. I've heard people say trap games and, like Temple always seems to have our number. They don't have our number. I mean, they had our number when Tommy Tuberville was the coach and we were still more talented, and somehow then even still the better team. They had our number. Now you look at this recruiting and the players that we're pulling in, we can play a bad game and still beat them by 3 touchdowns, if not more. We play a normal game and I think it's over by midway through the second quarter. So I don't have much to say on it other than I'm just pumped, and I'm going to start drinking at 2:00 to get ready for it.
Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about. I'm excited for this game because now it's time to turn on the Jets and release Desmond Ridder. This needs to be every week, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick here. I'm not too concerned about our offense. They are scoring 27 points a game, but they're allowing 30. So that's the biggest thing. I think our defense is going to shut them down. Their QB's not horrible. Mathis is 5 touchdowns to 1 pick. So he's not bad and he's played decent, but I think Temple is just going to be outgunned literally at every position here. I don't know where they match up, what position group really matches up versus ours better. I truly don't know. I think Temple's going to play hard because that's who they are, but they're just literally outmatched. It's like Alabama playing Vanderbilt. That's how we feel this week.
Yep, exactly. Yep, that's about all I got on that.
Yeah, yep. So that'll be a good one. 7 p.m. Eastern this Friday. Get your popcorn ready. Cincinnati, hopefully 5-0 and moving up in the rankings after this one. But let's dive in real quick. We got some big news on some college football recruiting. Greg,
Yep.
what's happening in the football recruiting world right now? Got to be good things after what's happened this week.
Oh yeah. So I have about 10 names of offers that we've sent out, and this was post Indiana, not even post Notre Dame. So I'm looking for big offers to come out in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
But just to start, okay, so JQ Hardaway, he's already a 2022 commit, but we just offered two of his teammates, Tamarian Parker and Carmelo English. They're respectively number 100 player overall defensive lineman and 127 as a wide receiver, two huge high 4-star players.
Yeah.
Then just going in ascending order, we offered, this is all just overall 24/7 sports composite, 78 athlete, number 103, he's a safety, 105 linebacker, 222 tight end, 235 cornerback. That was actually, we made his top 10 or 15.
Okay, great.
259 wide receiver, 319 offensive tackle, and the most exciting and probably least likely to happen, number 8 overall player, Sonny Styles, his brother Lorenzo Styles, plays for Notre Dame. Sonny was at the game watched us come in and beat him. It's almost all said and done that he's going to Notre Dame or Ohio State, but you come in, get some momentum, and the Sour Patch Kids, that's Stephen Bird, our 2022 commit, Tyler Gillison, CJ Doggett, both 2022 commits, and Sonny Styles. The four of them used to be this young group of players called the Sour Patch Kids that was coined by one of their dads or coaches. And I mean, it's like,
you never know. They might be in his ear now after watching us kick some ass. You know, he could be swayed here. So that's freaking awesome, man. It's awesome what these big games are allowing us to do is finally creep up into not just snagging one lucky 4-star recruit each recruiting cycle or every other recruiting cycle. We're now offering a lot of guys, a lot of 4-stars, 5-stars. We're not going to reach over our head, maybe just throw a dart at the board here at 1 5-star, but now we can offer legitimate 4-stars here. Like, hey, do you want to go play at Tennessee right now and not do anything in the SEC, or do you want to come and play for Cincinnati, who competes for college football championships, who plays in New Year's 6-day bowls? And like you said, you come for 1 year and then you're in the Big 12. And you're probably not even starting as a freshman. So let's look at this big perspective here. That's what I always think. Why do you want to go play for Virginia Tech? What are you going to do at Virginia Tech? Cincinnati is competing right now. So this is just awesome to see. Super pumped about it.
And smacking Virginia Tech in bowl games anyway. So
that's for sure. That's for sure.
That's a good point though. I mean, we used to cast a wide net of 3 stars with a handful of 4 stars. Now we cast a wide net of 4-star offers with a few 5 stars. And I think that's how you've seen this recruiting, and Luke Fickell and his staff just doing
100%.
an amazing job. And you're going to snag more of those guys now. So let's go.
Yep. All eyes were on Cincinnati this past weekend. That's awesome. Now we're going to transition to a little bit of basketball. It's getting that time, man. October basketball season is right around the corner here. Big news. Miller time, baby. New head coach Wes Miller, man. I've been preaching his praises since he was hired. Love this guy. Love his motivation. Youngest head coach in college basketball right now. Love this guy coming from UNC Greensboro. What do we got on the basketball recruiting front here, Greg? I hear we got 2 big recruits in here.
Yep. Coming almost a week ago, big commitment from Josh Reed. We now have the 13th overall recruiting class for 2022. He's a top 150 prospect. And I mean, he's a smart kid. He had a top list of Boston College, Northwestern, Butler, which he didn't even end up visiting, South Carolina, and UC. Went to UC, or chose UC. So smart kid we're bringing in. I'm assuming high basketball IQ. And add him to the pot with Sage Tolentino and Daniel Skillings. And this is looking like a beautiful class and a great way for Wes Miller to start. And I'm just excited to see what they do in 2023 when they can actually get on the court, show their system. He's not going to be showing highlights from UNCG anymore. He's going to say, look, this is what we do at Cincinnati. These are the players that want to play here, and we want you to be one of them. That's a good pitch.
Hell yeah, man. So
Miller time.
excited.
Let's go.
Miller time, baby. This is awesome. 13th in the country for the Bearcats basketball team. That's what I'm talking about. We always knew we had this kind of potential. We renovated Fifth Third Arena. We brought in a young, hungry coach instead of some guy who was successful, mediocre successful down the street. Look, everyone misses Mick. You know, I needed higher expectations than losing in the first round of the NCAA tournament every year. John Brennan just wasn't doing it for us. He brings no spark to a room he's in and clearly drug the room down now that he dropped his lawsuit, which is great. I'm just happy to have a young, hungry coach in there. Get your butt on that recruiting trail, get a few 4-stars, and look at this. 14th best team recruiting class in the country. Big things to come for Cincinnati basketball. Can't wait till this starts and we can see them all squeaking shoes on the court together. This is going to be awesome.
Yep. We're talking like under 40 days right now. So I'm excited to see no longer some creepy vampire walking around along the sidelines and Wes Miller and doing what he wants to do with this team. I'm excited. Let's go.
Big news for Cincinnati football and basketball recruiting. Great stuff. That brings it to an end here for our episode of Cincinnati Podcasts. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks Chili Labs for sponsoring. And thank you, Greg, for an awesome episode.
Yes, sir.
All
Let's
right.
go Cats, beat Temple.
All right. Go Cats and hook 'em horns.